In this screencast, I'm going to talk about how we can use Google Maps in spatial analysis. What goes with the accompanying screencast that I made about using Digimaps as a tool for spatial analysis. So there are lots of things that that Digimaps are better at, but there are also benefits to using Google Maps. And of course, everybody has access to Google Maps. So first of all, you go to Google Maps, which you can do through a Google search, or most other search engines will find it. And it's worth, first of all, just sort of taking in the information that you get on Google Maps at this scale. So there obviously is nowhere near the level of detail or functionality as you get in Digimaps, but you still get a nice clear view. Say, for example, here you get to see the river systems of Sheffield, you get to see quite a lot of the designated green spaces around Sheffield, and the major road systems. And then let's zoom into the area that we focused on in the Digimaps video, which is around the northwest of Sheffield. Okay, so some of the things that you kind of get with Digimaps that you don't get with with Google Maps you don't get with Digimaps are really a kind of good view of the up-to-date services that are available in the area. So this isn't such a pretty picture in terms of creating a nice base map, but you've got a lot of information here about the kind of different services that are available in the area. So you can click on the expand the sidebar here. You can have a look for grocery shops that are available in the area, and it will give you a bit of a profile of that. So you can see the information down the left hand side here. So if you're wanting to kind of do an assessment about the existing food infrastructure in an area, then you could use the kind of Google Maps functionality for that. Other things that you can do in Google Maps obviously is you can flick quite easily between the satellite view and the map view, so you can get a little bit more detail about that's a nice easy way of moving between the two things. Of course, the other great thing about Google Maps is the use of Street View. So one of the things that you could think about here is if, say, you wanted to make an assessment about the quality of a green space, or what kind of use the green space in an area was, what it's being used for, then you can't go to that space and have a look at it, but you can try and get a bit of an assessment about the quality of the green space by going into Street View and having a little look. I mean, obviously, you can only usually go around the edges of these spaces. They don't normally let you in to pedestrian-only areas, but you can kind of, hear a little bit of evidence of maybe littering or poor maintenance around this space, and lots of things you can do in Street View, and then just click back out of there, up here in the top left. Okay. So that's one of the things in terms of using Street View. Just click on the little person to get rid of that view. Another thing that you can do in Google Maps that you might want to think about is it's really good on kind of up-to-date things around transport and travel. So if you zoom into an area, you start to get a bit more detail here. So if we look here, we've got this little tram icon. And if you click on that, you'll get information about the services that are being used at that site. So you can get information about the different routes and frequency of stops. Likewise, you find bus stops. Here we go, here's a bus stop. If you click on the bus stop, you can see it tells you information about the different routes. You can click on, let's look at the 751 route. Gives you information about how that route functions and the different times and frequencies of the buses, which again is a nice feature that you won't get that on Digimaps. And so you can look at all those different stops and kind of hover over the different stops. Great. Okay. So that's a bit more dynamic information. Of course, the other thing, excuse me, that you can use this for is directions. And why might you use directions? Well, directions would be quite good for getting things like live and quite dynamic uh, sort of travel information. So there, and then we want to see how long it takes to get to the city centre. And you can choose different modes of transport. You can get information about topography. So if it was a cycle route, that would be the advised cycle route. If it was driving, give you advised driving routes and live times in terms of how long it takes. So that again gives you a bit more, if you want to look at the kind of more dynamic profile of transport and travel in the area. That's another good way of supplementing the information on Digimaps. You can also get information about photos about things, more information about the services, photographs of the different services that are in the area, information about different kinds of green space, different kinds of religious facilities, and that kind of thing. So there's a more kind of dynamic, up to date information about what's actually happening on the ground, what it's like to be in those areas using Google Maps. And a bit more kind of spatial data and a bit more functionality around these kind of underlying more static data you get from Digimaps. So I hope that's been helpful. And before I finish, of course, the other way that you can get kind of dynamic information about particularly things like transport infrastructures in an area would be to do a Google search for things like public transport maps, or so here is a site where you can get all of the different kind of transport information for South Yorkshire. So what you'd have to do there obviously is find your local equivalent, but we could have a look at a transport map. And these could be good sort of supplementary images that you could use to support your spatial analysis, your different sites. So although obviously you'll be able to use the Sheffield one for your sites, because none of the sites are in Sheffield, unless you've chosen one already, then this kind of search term, looking for the local travel maps will give you really good up-to-date information on transport infrastructure.